Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about a TV show that I came across on Amazon, and that show is called The Wilds. Now this show is a very, very, very good show. I love this show to death. I'm so glad I stuck with it because after the first episode, I was gonna stop watching it because the first episode was just crap. It was written badly, the dialogue's bad. I didn't know really what direction the show was gonna go in, but then I went online and I saw somebody comment and they say don't pay attention to the reviews, just get past the first episode and things pick up. And by the second episode, the writing was much better, the dialogue was much better. And there was a huge twist at the end of the second episode. And I'm like, whoa, I have to see how this happened, like it's crazy. It's just crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy. However, even though I love this show to death and I think everybody should watch it, there's one huge element about this show I cannot stand and it pisses me off so badly. Now let's put a pin in that for a second. The Wilds is about a group of girls, 9 of them, who get stranded on an island. After their plane crash, they are in the water and then they swim to shore and then they're just there for the remainder of, I think, how many days were they there for? 23 days. And so, yeah, and they have to survive all on their own because there's nobody left on this island, or so they don't think. And the thing about this show is kind of like the girls, okay, this was no freak accident that the plane crashed down and the girls got there. There's something sinister at foot. There's somebody who's pulling all the strings, and it's kind of like, why? Who is this person who wants to strand a bunch of girls on an island to fend for themselves? That's just insane. Now, when I first started watching this show, I assumed that this was going to be like an all-female version of Lord of the Flies. If you're not familiar with that, Lord of the Flies is a very, very, very old novel where a group of British boys plane crash and then they on a stranded island, or deserted island, I should say. And from there, the boys are very competitive with each other. They fight over territory. They fight over who's going to be the leader. When I watched the movie back in school, elementary, the last part I remember seeing was a big boulder fall down off the cliff and hit a boy smack dab in the head and kills him. And it's just a really interesting show that shows what would little boys be like, if they were stranded on an island? How would they act? Because, boys are very rambunctious and stuff. But I never finished the movie because when we was in school, the teacher didn't show it the next day. She probably got in trouble because she probably wasn't allowed to show it the movie. We're probably allowed to learn about it, but not watch it. But then she never had us read the books, so I really don't understand the point of that. Now, this other person compared this show to Lost. I've never seen Lost. I didn't want to get into that whole stands of Lost, where I became a diehard fan, because shows like that, it's kind of like when you hear people talking about, oh, how great this show is, and people are obsessed with it to where they have to watch every episode. That's kind of a good thing, but then you become obsessive and it's I don't want to do that. I did that with other shows, but I'm so glad I stuck out with this show, because the thing about this show is that these group of girls, it's kind of like The Walking Dead, kind of like Sliders. It's a group of people who really don't know each other. And they all have different personalities and they all have to come together as one. And shows like that are fun. It's fun to see people interact with folks you mainly will never interact with. You have the very, say, upbeat, positive girl, the tough girl, the shy girl, the crazy, hopeless, romantic type girl, the super religious girl. And then you have the social, awkward type, smart girl. So it's really cool to see them kind of bring all their skills together and and just try to work in harmony for those 23 days. However, sometimes it's kind of they give certain traits to another character. So then 2 characters or 3 characters are very similar, because for the most part, these girls don't really get along like at all. And I mean like at all. They're constantly bickering and constantly fighting, like typical teen girls would do, or like people would do. But then at the end, they all decide, we have to come together, we have to try to like make the best out of this because, you know, either we have to wait until somebody rescue us, or it's kind of be like a Gilligan Island type thing where you're gonna be living there forever. Now, this series is 10 episodes, but they were there for a total of 23 days. So, like it skips around and stuff like that. Now, at first, I wasn't really too keen on the format because it starts off with a girl narrating this show. And I assumed she was going to be like the main character of like this show because she was the only girl out of all these 9 that was narrating. And so I'm like, oh, okay, then I guess it must be her show. And also, oh, okay, she got rescued and she's being interrogated by like these FBI agents and stuff. So I guess like everything is okay. And then, then they go into like flashbacks, and the flashbacks were all about her and stuff. So I'm just thinking, okay, well, it must be her show. Those flashbacks I saw, I particularly didn't like. The dialogue in the first episode, I particularly did not like. It sounded very stupid and juvenile for a show that's probably a little bit more mature and stuff. And thank God for that one person, because if it wasn't for that one person who said, you should keep on watching it, I never would have like finished this series. And I'm so glad I finished this series. Now, this show is filmed in New Zealand, and I just love when American shows are filmed in New Zealand. There's tons of shows that are like that. The cast is divided pretty much from American, Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand, which makes sense. If it's filmed over there in New Zealand, they always have a lot of Australian people, like, work on their show because they're so close together. And since it's an American show, so, there'll be like a few Americans in there. But since it's filmed in another country, they mostly have like locals there. But there aren't really that many people on this show, except when we get into like the flashbacks and stuff. Now, this show takes place in 3 different time eras. There is the present day stuff, which is kind of like this facility where the girls are being interrogated after being saved. Then there's stuff that happens in the past with the flashbacks on the island. And then we go back way, 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 way into the past with the flashbacks of their normal life before they got stranded on the island. Okay, so episode 1 starts off, and like I said before, I particularly did not like episode 1. I didn't like the dialogue, especially in the opening. I didn't like the flashbacks that I saw because there's an element in there that really pisses me off. And I kind of assumed that, since the girl's being rescued, kind of like, really, what's the point of watching this show? But then, of course, it's kind of like, once I found out some of the strange stuff that was going on in the show, it's kind of like, it really caught my attention. Now, the first episode deals with a girl named Leah. Leah is a hopeless, romantic, crazy girl. And the show pretty much starts off like this. She's narrating in a very, like, dumb dialogue kind of way. Something similar to that you'll see, like, on Riverdale, where she was talking about, like, being on the island was probably, like, the best thing for her. And she wishes she can go back because the real world isn't all that great, and like high school is like the real nightmare and everything. I'm just like, what kind of corny dialogue is that? So it starts off pretty much with the girls are already on the plane, and we see them not getting along with each other. We're getting kind of like a vibe of some of their personalities, however, not really, because some are a whole lot meaner than the other ones. You got Dot, who's mean. You have Rachel, who's mean. You have Nora, who's just like reading a book. You have Shelby, who's doing like this upbeat, like super religious thing. And you have like Jeanette, who's also like extremely upbeat and perky and stuff. And then you have Tony, who's kind of like, just leave me alone. Just, I can't stand none of y'all. And you got, I don't know how you say this girl's name. It's Fatin, and she's Pakistani. Is it Fatin? Something like that. She's kind of like the posh, rich girl who loves the very expensive clothes. And then you got like Martha, who's kind of like, just this very shy girl who's always blushing and always asking, what's it like to date a boy and to fall in love and stuff like that, She's also a hopeless romantic, but she's mostly just like a shy girl. Well, of course, like I said, it's a plane crash, so tragedy happens and the plane crashes. And then as it's crashing, the girls are kind of like, oh god, I can see like my whole life flashing between my before my eyes and stuff. And so it's kind of like we see the girls just kind of acting weird. We see the super religious girl, she's praying. We see like the shy girl, she's like freaking out. We see Rachel, who we'll find out in the second episode, she's bulimic. She's like, okay, first, before the plane crash, she was like scanning her food to see how many calories in it. Can you do this? Is there a phone app that where you put your food on like the phone and it scans it and it tells you how many calories is in it? Like, can it do that? I don't know. Anyway, so first she was doing that, but then when the plane crashes, she's like shoving like the brownie like all in her mouth because she's bulimic, so she wants her last meal to be like a good one before she dies and stuff. So then like Leah wakes up in the water and she's freaking out. Like she's glad she's alive, but she don't know how like what all happened. Like she has no memory of like when the plane actually crash landed in the water. But she sees Jeanette, and so she grabs Jeanette and they swim to shore. And then she sees all the other girls on shore too. And she asks them like, do you remember like how you got to shore? And they're all like, no, we don't remember anything. We just like woke up. Like the girls literally just woke up on like the shoreline. So that right there gave me my first suspicious kind of feeling. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, something's kind of weird like going on. Like how is it the girls aren't really sure how they got there? But I'm like, maybe somebody who was awake from the crash like swam them there. They cannot find the pilot's body like at all. So while they're there, they're like being snarky and rude to each other, and like so they're just like being typical girls, and so they're trying to gather as many supplies as they can. And so from the crash wreckage, so they don't have much, but one of the girls has a cell phone on them, and the battery's about to die out. So oh no, it's wet. So then they put it in sand to kind of like dry it. And so they're all like, who should we call? And one of the girls are kind of like, oh, I have a family member, or I have a parent that works in like 911 operating thing. And they're all like, well, you can't call 911 if we don't know where we're at, because not every country 911 is like the same thing. So they're debating, who they should like call. But then once the phone actually does work, I forget, I think they're not able to make a call out because they don't have that many bars or something like that. Now for the flashback part that's not on the island, but her life before the island. So Leah's just like this little high school girl, and she's 16 years old. She has a best friend. I forget his name, but I'll remember it later probably. Anyway, there's a guy at her school giving, I think, like a lecture. He's like he writes books, he writes novels, stuff like that. Turns out him and her have been having a relationship. They're dating, and she ends up falling in love with him hard. Like she falls in love quick and hard. So next thing you know, she lied to him this whole time. She told him that she's 17 in a couple of months. She's gonna be 18. Now I could have sworn this dude was her teacher that goes to the school, but he writes novels and stuff. Now, I'm not okay with this at all, because this dude knew she was 17 in high school and he dated her. Now, later on in that episode, these two end up like having sex with each other. And he's falling in love, she's falling in love harder. But then somebody sends him like a email or a paper with her birth certificate on there. And he realizes this girl is, holy crap, she's 16 years old. And so he's like freaking out because he don't want to go to jail. As they're in the car together at their house, at her house, he's about to drop her off. He tells her, look, you lied to me. This ain't cool. I can go to jail. We need to break up, and we need to break up now. And she's all like, no, I love you, blah, 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 blah. He's like, look, I don't care. I don't want to go to jail. He should have known that when he knew he was dating as opposed to a 17-year-old girl. Like, she's not 18. 17 is not the legal age limit. She's still in high school. This dude knew all along, and he didn't care. He's a nasty little predator and stuff. A nasty little sex fiend. So anyway, he breaks up with her. She's devastated, and she don't know who like sent the her birth certificate to him. It turns out it's her best friend. when he found out those two are like dating and stuff. So, anyways, she's all heartbroken over that. And then I guess like her parents, or something else happens to her also. But I'll get to that a little bit later. But pretty much her parents suggest that she goes on this feminist retreat. And this feminist retreat is called the Dawn of Eve program. Eve being, like Adam and Eve. So, like, that's what it's called. It's a feminist resort. And it's run by a woman named Gretchen Clean. I can't talk. It's run by a woman named Gretchen Keen or Klein. Yeah, Klein. Something, I don't know. So back on the island flashback point, Jeanette is complaining that her stomach hurts like really, really, really bad. And so nobody knows what's wrong with her. Towards the end of that episode, Jeanette just straight up die. And so when the girls go to check on her, they lift up her shirt and her whole side of her stomach is swollen. It's black, blue, and purple. They're like kind of like blood kind of stains. She was having internal bleeding. So they assumed, in the crash, she hurt herself really bad when she crashed into the ocean. And that, and that's what she died from. Let's put a little pin in that for a little bit later. So they do the humane thing and they bury her on the shore near their campsite, because they're sleeping on the beach shoreline. Let's put a pin in that later also. So anyway, as the girls are like fast asleep, Leah wakes up to hear a noise. The noise is coming from where they buried Jeanette. So Leah starts digging and she finds that Jeanette had a cell phone this entire time and didn't tell nobody. Now, when they found that first cell phone, it was wet and barely worked, but Jeanette kept her mouth shut the entire time. And it's kind of like, why? But here's the thing about the cell phone. The cell phone isn't your ordinary type of cell phone. It's one of those kind of like satellite phones that can reach out to like another country in case you're stranded in a place that doesn't have a good signal. So instead of trying to call for help, Miss Love Obsessive, she calls her little boy toy Jeffrey. And that's the dude who like writes the novels, the older man who slept with her. She calls him, and all she doesn't even say like, we need help, we're stranded, the plane crashed. All she just says like, hey. And he's all like, are you calling me from like a different number so I want to pick up to you and stuff? And he's like, look, I don't want nothing to do with you. Just leave me alone. And he hangs up on her. She blew her only freaking call for help because she's in love with this dude, because she's dependent on love from this guy. And then in the future scenes, when being interrogated, she tells the two FBI dudes that she didn't tell the other girls that she called somebody, because after she made that call, the battery went dead. So she just pretended like, the girl had a phone on her the whole time, but it was like dead. So that was day 1 on episode 1. Day 2 is also episode 2. Before I go into day 2, let me just emphasize on something I brought up on day 1. And that's the whole adults preying on little like young people. I don't like it. I can't stand it. I wish it would stop in TV shows. It happens in every stinking teen drama there is, and it's ridiculous. Like, why? Why are they constantly showing this? If it's for like a teaching lesson, then I can understand that. But for the most part on these teen drama shows or drama shows in general, they don't do that. And it's kind of like, what are they trying to say? Because it's kind of like, if you do this in real life, there's going to be some bad consequences and stuff. You're going to go to jail and everything, or you're going to be losing your job or something like that. Or you're going to be considered a sex fiend and have to put one of them sex registration thingies on like your property and stuff. Like, it's not cool. It's never okay to date somebody under your age. And it's kind of like, I understand when the young people, they have infatuations with older people, or they have crushes on other older people. They don't know no better. And plus, they're only human. They haven't, they learn why it's bad. But these adults, they know it's bad, and they still do it anyway. And it is disgusting. And it is constantly shown on TV and movies. And not only is it shown on TV shows, but it's glamorized. There are TV shows that literally glamorize older people dating these younger like kids, and it's mostly they always want to show the older man dating like a younger student, when in reality in modern days it's mainly now the older women teachers that are dating their students. Like in the past it used to be the males, but but there are still males out there that prey on young people, just like there are young women who prey on younger men. I mean older women who prey on younger men, cougars and everything. And it's kind of like it's just never, ever, 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 whatever you tell yourself is not okay. Plain and simple as that. And they need to stop showing this on TV. Pretty Little Liars had a teacher date his student. Mr. Fitz dated Aria. And there was plenty of relationships on that show, but the best one of them all was Aria and Mr. Fitz. Why? Because they glamorized it. They made that the most compelling love story in the entire series. And they dated for like a very long time, for many seasons. Then the parents found out. Then the parents made them stop. Then the parents all kind of like, look, you love each other, so just be together, or we don't want to lose our daughter. What kind of message is that? Like, no, call the police and make sure this man goes to jail. But they didn't do that. It happens in the book, but they don't do that on the show. And then they do break up for a good while, only because she thinks that he killed her best friend and he's trying to kill her and her other friend. But then when she finds out he's not the killer, then she falls all back in love with him again. Then they do like a time jump towards the last season where now she's an adult. And now those two are married, of all things. So, and now not only that, but the show is literally trying to teach people that it's okay to date your teacher, and it's okay because many years later you will fall in love. Like, that's a terrible lesson. It happened in Sailor Moon, the animated series too. Sailor Moon dated Tuxedo Mask, fell in love with him. But here's the thing. When they got reincarnated on Earth, she was in middle school, he was in college. That's very gross and disgusting. It was on a kid's cartoon series of all things. Not only that, but her best friend, Molly for the American dub and Naru for the Japanese dub, she falls in love with Netflix, and she's a middle school girl, and Netflix, a grown man, and and it's kind of like, that's like so gross, and they glamorized the crap out of it and made it so lovey-dovey that you couldn't help but to feel sorry for when Netflix died and everything. And not only that, but Sailor Moon and freaking Tuxedo Mask 1,000 years into the future had a kid, and it's kind of like, but they retained their youthful look. So it's just like, stop glamorizing that crap. It happened on this great teen drama called Ackley Bridge, with a character named Corey. He ends up dating his teacher. And then there was like the whole Buffy Angel thing. Buffy was a teenage girl. Angel was like 1,000-year-old vampire or some crap like that, or 100-year or 400-year vampire. And it's kind of like, he is beyond like a grown man. And not only did they do it in the series, they fall in love. And it was like the best relationship ever in the entire series. And they glamorized it. I don't understand why they glamorized it. It's like, because when real life people see this mess, they do it and then they end up in jail. And then they did the same thing on Riverdale in the first season, which caused huge controversy. Now, this is what's interesting, the whole double standard. When it happened on Pretty Little Liars, I didn't hear not one person complain that, oh, this is gross, this is wrong, this and that. I complained, but like nobody else did. Everybody's all like, we want Aria and Mr. Fitz to be together. We want them to be together. And it's like, where was that hatred for them that they showed towards Archie? And I think her name is Miss Grundy or something like that. I can't remember because it's been since the first season. This relationship was pretty much where Archie had a summer fling with his teacher. And when they saw each other again in the fall, they started up their little love romance thing. The dad finds out and he puts an end to it. And fans hated that storyline so much that they wrote her character off at the end of the season. And then to further get rid of her, they killed her in the premiere of the second season. So, so they clearly saw the writing on the wall from fans who did not like that. And the worst thing about that is the actress, she has been blacklisted in Hollywood. She has not had a acting TV or movie role since that first season of Riverdale. Her entire career is now over, and it's all because she played a character who was an older teacher, who was about like in her early 30s, who messed around with a teenage boy. Fans took that so serious and literally that they ended this woman's career. See, it's never good to show this crap on TV, and it needs to stop. Okay, episode 2, day 2. So the girls wake up. Oh, by the way, this is a Rachel episode. Rachel is a competitive diver and swimmer, and she's twin sister with Nora, even though they don't look nothing alike. Rachel is very hot-headed. Like, she's a very mean girl, and she's also like a go-getter type. She's extremely competitive, and she pretty much doesn't like to give up on nothing. She will keep doing something until it actually happens, even if it ends up hurting herself or killing herself. When Leah tells the other girls that Jeanette had a phone, Rachel is pissed off. And I mean, she is pissed off to the point where she spits on Jeanette's gravesite. Like, that's how pissed off she is at her. Now, in this episode, we discovered that Rachel doesn't particularly like her sister Nora very much. Also in this episode, Tony, who's an extreme hothead, she doesn't like the idea that Shelby and Martha are like becoming buddy friends now on the island. See, Tony and Martha are really good friends back where they live, and she particularly does not like Shelby because Shelby is very religious and slightly homophobic, and Tony is a straight out lesbian who is opening out. Anyways, in this episode, they find a bunch of supplies. Well, mainly Shelby. Shelby seems to be the only person who really finds stuff that washes up on shore, and she finds like a bunch of like medication and stuff like that. Dot, who is kind of like the rebel mean girl, she decides to pretty much take charge of the group because she has a lot of like wilderness training. So she starts a little tiny campfire, or actually like a signal fire, because she says, like, you know, if a plane ever flies over them, they'll be able to see the smoke coming from this fire. Now, here's the problem with that. The fire she makes isn't even like a normal camp-sized fire. It's like a teeny tiny little fire with little puffs of smoke coming up. So it's kind of like, why didn't you make a bigger fire? Or why didn't you go on the mountain cliff side and, I don't know, like make a bigger fire? Or, I mean, at least set the trees on fire like Elizabeth did in the Pirates movie, Pirates of the Caribbean. Also, why would you make your campfire near the shoreline? Because one, the ocean, and two, it's near your little camp place. And it's kind of like the water would kind of like wash away the fire and stuff. And it's too much wind coming downward and stuff. But, you know, whatever. So back to Rachel. We find out in flashbacks that Rachel is a competitive diver. She's extremely good. She's extremely good at swimming. And her parents are very proud of her. Her parents are very, very, very good and very kind-hearted. And her sister, Nora, is awkward and extremely smart. Like, she is like a super genius. Nora loves her twin sister to death, and she loves her opinion on stuff, and you know, and it's kind of like, but we find out in this episode Rachel doesn't really like Nora all that much, and we find out why. When Nora was talking to her coach, when Rachel was talking to her coach said, you know, you're a good swimmer, you're gonna make it into Stanford, but you're starting to slow down. And the reason for that is because you don't really have the body of a swimmer. Now, Rachel's not big at all. She's not like Dot or Martha, but she has some curves to her, I guess you can say, and some muscles and stuff. So, sadly, like most people who get told this stuff in sports, Rachel starts to stick her finger down her throat. She starts to eat less. She becomes very bulimic. She becomes extremely lightheaded, but she's doing everything she can because she wants to be the fastest and she wants to get into Stanford. And nobody should ever have to do this. Nobody should ever have to like throw up or eat less just to be skinny. And if you do have that problem, please get help because it's a lot of bad side effects that happens as a result of that. Your teeth become very brittle. You cut your finger a lot because your teeth become kind of like harder. You get very skinny. You're malnourished. You're lightheaded. Your body's in a lot of bad shape. Like you should never ever do that. So Nora finds out what Rachel has been doing, and one day, and the thing about Rachel and Nora is that Nora works her butt off to be the best swimmer she can, but her family, for the most part, don't really give her no encouragement. They give most of their encouragement to Nora because Nora is very smart. They're very smart. When they eat at dinner, they have like these little trivia games and stuff, and it really bums Rachel out because Rachel's kind of like, I'm a hard worker, I'm a hard competitor, and y'all don't like pay attention to me. That's another reason why she really doesn't like her sister all that much. But like I said, Nora finds out that Rachel is starving herself. So she tells Nora, don't you tell our parents, plain and simple as that. Well, when Rachel had one of her meets, she on a little diving board and she like messes up big time and hits her head. And of course, when they examine her, they realize that she's been starving herself. Now, I'm not 100% sure because it's been a while since I saw this in January because the show came out in December. I think Nora did rat her out to the parents after she slipped and fell and hurt herself. Well, Rachel did. And so it's kind of like she had no choice at that point. She had to tell her parents what was going on. Rachel sees red from here to now until like the island and everything. Like she is that pissed off at her sister. And this was the episode that kind of like, got me liking this series. I didn't like the first episode because of the whole like not teacher, but the older man preying on the little girl thing. This story, is more acceptable in terms of like drama telling, because there are a lot of people who faces this crap of like being told they're not good enough, they're not skinny enough, they're bigger. Like a lot of people have packed on a lot of weight since the pandemic. I know I have, and I haven't been able to like kick it off, but like I work out to try to like get it off. I'm not gonna resort to sticking my finger in my throat and throwing up. So it's kind of like I can like kind of understand where she was coming from, and that felt more like humanistic and realistic to me than some little girl falling in love with some older man. But the kicker was this. In the present, when she's being interrogated, she raises up her right hand and her hand is missing. Her arm is still there, but she's missing her hand. And it's like, holy crap. What happened to this girl's hand? Like, how did she lose it? And it wasn't revealed until the end of the episode, so we don't know, like, how she lost her hand. So I'm like, oh man, I gotta watch the rest of this series. I gotta find out how. Because when they went back so after they revealed that, they went back to a flashback, and we see her hand is intact, and she's holding hands with her sister, because now her and her sister have kind of like reconciled a little bit. Understands why her sister like did what she did and stuff. And it's like, okay, if they went that far to where a girl loses their hand, who knows what else they're going to do in this series? I had to keep on watching. In this episode, we also see Dot and Fatten kind of bond a little bit as they're dragging the giant like parachute type thing. In this episode, we see a very interesting secret that Shelby has. And that secret is that she has false teeth. And every morning she cleans it in the ocean, puts it in her mouth, and she doesn't want anybody to find out. So back on the island, Rachel is doing her go-getterness after they discover that they find a mirror. So Dot and Rachel, they decide that if they were to put the mirror on top of like the little mountain cliff thing, then the sunlight will reflect off it and anybody who's flying by should see that. Well, after an argument, because Rachel is a hothead and everything, after an argument, she kind of like mistakenly throws the mirror off the cliffside. One of the girls try to go get it, but almost gets hurt, and then Rachel has to save them. I think it was Nora that tried to get the mirror because it's like it's below the cliff on like some rocks, and so Nora climbs down there to go get it, but then she almost slips and fall, and then Rachel saves her life and stuff. So after that little rescue and stuff, Nora and Rachel, for the most part, get along. But then Rachel's kind of being like the overbearing, protective type sister, but also can kind of stand her and stuff. So episode 3, day 3. And this is a Dot episode. And we see her in the beginning in the present day. She is dancing. She's just dancing like it's nobody's business. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Why is she so happy, happy, joy, joy? Because every time we see her on the island, she's like rude, mean, and pissy and everything. So like something must have happened that was so good. Maybe she's just so excited, and she just can't hide it. And then when she's in the interrogation room, she's scarfing out like all this food because now they finally get to eat like real food. So on the island, a huge, massive storm hit while the girls are trying to sleep at night. And it keeps them up all night. So after the storm, Dot suggests that they should all build shelter and look for either like a cave or something to sleep in because sleeping outside just ain't gonna cut it. All of the girls don't want to do that. Nora, Lynn, and Rachel, they decide they're gonna go out into the ocean and look for the wreckage. The other girls decide they're just gonna lounge out and just like, have like a Sunday because they feel they're gonna be rescued soon. This pisses off Dot, so she decides to go off on her own, but Shelby decides to go with her because of the whole buddy system thing. While there, Shelby's trying to bond with her, but Dot doesn't really like her all that much because they run in different circles. And, Shelby's telling how we haven't seen really each other since probably like middle school and since like soccer and stuff like that. But then, we just drifted apart. And then she brings up like Dot's dad and how like he used to coach soccer and that how she feels sorry that, what happened to him. And Dot's is kind of like, oh, we don't need to go there and stuff. Then they get into a huge argument because Shelby's all like, I don't know why you keep spreading rumors that like, my boyfriend cheats and that he does drugs because he's a little side hustle thing because Dot sells drugs. Dot tells her that, your boyfriend's cheating on you and he's one of my best customers. See, we find out why she's so good at medicine. Dot, she sells drugs. And because Dot's kind of like the rebel without a cause, grungy type. She's a mean girl who don't like skinny girls or pretty girls and stuff like that. Girls who are always about makeup and fashion and stuff. And Shelby's boyfriend is one of her best customers. She's always selling to him. And that's how she discovers that he's cheating on her because she sold it to him in his car and he was getting blown by some girl. Now, with each girl, there's always something in their past or in the like past before they got on the island or past when they were on the island that kind of redeems them a little bit. And we kind of see also why they're the way they are. It turns out that Dot's dad is an older man and he's dying of a terminal illness. There's nothing they can do. The man is literally about to die. And so since he can't work, and I guess he doesn't get like disability or nothing like that, she sells drugs to kind of like pay bills and get his meds and other stuff like that. And her dad is so sweet, so kind, and he hates that he's a burden on his daughter because he wants her just to have a normal teen life, and she can't because she can't go to parties. She can't go to school events because she has to take care of him. Also who takes care of him is like this little dude named Mateo, and he's kind of like a caregiver type nurse type person, which if she's in high school and he's a caregiver, he's too young to be a caregiver, so he must be a little bit older because he has a crush on her and he puts in so many extra hours to take care of her dad because he wants to get closer to her. And he makes this move and kisses her and she likes him back. But she rejects him because she's all like, look, I don't have time for relationships. I have to take care of my father. That's like the first thing that comes, like that's her main priority and stuff. So after the little argument that Shelby and Dot have, they decide to like patch things up when Shelby finds like a tiny little cave area. So then next thing you know, they're talking, but Dot really doesn't want to listen to her. And then a fly flies into Shelby's mouth of all things. So she's gagging and everything, and her fake teeth fall out. Dot's just like, whoa. And then like Shelby is like horrified. She picks up her teeth and she like takes off running. But Dot doesn't chase after her. So Leah, Nora, and Rachel, they swim out to shore, or far into the ocean, and then they spot like the back of the plane, the kitchen area, and they're able to get some more soda cans. But then Rachel spots the black box. She wonders if it can send like a GPS signal, and Nora tells her yeah. So then Rachel makes it her top priority, no matter what, to get the black box so they can signal for help. So Dot is writing a huge letter in the sand saying help, but she doesn't finish the P because she like gets exhausted and just like crashes and stuff. Now, if she was gonna make a help sign, Leah and Rachel are constantly going down in the bottom of the ocean to get the black box, but they can't. It's stuck. And they make attempt after attempt after attempt, but it's just wedged in there too tight. Rachel doesn't care. Rachel wants to get that black box, but Leah just can't handle it. Like she can't hold her breath for that long, so she keeps going up, which is pissing Rachel off. So next thing you know, Rachel keeps on making her like go back down. And they do like 5 attempts on screen, but they did a whole lot more off screen. But the pressure of the water is too much for Leah's lungs, so she tries to like make an escape. But next thing you know, Rachel grabs her ankle and drags her back down so they can get the black box. So Dot is writing a huge letter in the sand saying help, but she doesn't finish the P because she like gets exhausted and just like crashes and stuff. Now, if she was gonna make a help sign, instead of making it with because she uses a stick to draw the words out in the sand. Well, the wind can blow that away. The water, since they're far away from the water won't touch it. But it could rain. The best thing for them to do, she should have used rocks or like sticks or something like that. But like as she's like laying out, she hears Shelby scream in horror. So she runs to find her, and there's Shelby on the ground, terrified because there's a rattlesnake by her feet. So Dot tells her like, don't move in it. And so she smashes like the stick and bops the snake in the head, but it doesn't like phase it, which I've done that before with a shovel. So you gotta keep on doing it. So then Dot decides she's gonna use the stick as a spear, and then she starts like stabbing at the ground, but she keeps missing, right? And then she finally stabs the snake, and she stabs it a couple more times, but then like she becomes enraged and she just starts stabbing it over and over and over and over. Well, it's getting to the point where her dad's illness is just getting worse and worse and worse. And he tells her, I don't want to live no more. I want you to kill me, euthanize him and stuff. She doesn't want to do that because she just wants her father. And he's like, look, you're young, you need to live your life. I'm old, it's my time and everything. But before I go, I want you to go on this kind of like feminist retreat, which is the Dawn of Eve program. And he's all like, that's just all I want you to do. Like, I just want you to go there. There's all kind of games there. You'll learn how to be a strong woman. They have archery. They have all kind of stuff that you're used to doing. He's like, I just want you to go and have a good time. And so she doesn't want to go there, but since it's his dying wish, she does it anyway. So she euthanizes him, he dies, and then she gets greeted by a woman. Now this is the woman Gretchen Klein, or whatever her name is. One thing I haven't mentioned so far is that Gretchen has a hidden agenda. She's the villain of this show. She's the main boss lady. Not only is she the program of this Eve thing, but she is the reason why these girls are stranded on the island. See, she planned this whole thing from the start. The girls, the plane never crashed. She set all this crap up because the dawn of the Eve program is the show that this is no longer a man's world, and that women are strong, and that they can do anything a man can, and they can survive in a man's world. Her theory is if you put a bunch of girls stranded on an island, they will be able to fend for themselves a whole lot better than a male would. She believes that the males would be more kind of like Lord of the Flies. They're bickering, they're fighting, they're trying to kill one another for territory, that kind of thing. She wants to prove that women are better than men in like every way. So she comes to Dot and she tells her, look, go on this retreat and I will keep you out of the system. True and Protective Services don't have to find out that you're a minor living on your own, that your father is dead. I will take care of your father's body, so nobody has to know that he is dead. The only person who knows is Mateo and stuff. But after this episode, Mateo is never seen again because there's no more Dot flashbacks. And, and Dot's a smart girl. She's kind of like, nothing is for free and there's always a price for stuff. And, Dot later finds out that is true and stuff, Nothing is for free because that whole thing, the plane crashed supposedly, and they on this island, they have to fend for themselves. So they talk some more, and they share each other's secrets, and they become like closer after that. And so then they find like a huge cave, and then they go back to the campsite. Now this is primarily a Dot episode, but there's also kind of a little bit of a Shelly episode too, or Shelby, I should say. So throughout the first two episodes, Shelby acts kind of weird and kind of goes off by herself. We discover about Shelby that she's missing two of her teeth on each side. It's the teeth that are next to your two front teeth. Those teeth. It's a hereditary thing. So it's not like they got kicked out or nothing like that. But she's very embarrassed by that, and she doesn't want nobody to know that she wears dentures. So once in a while, she'll go off by herself in the ocean and clean it off and put it back. At the new little makeshift campsite, we see the girls just lounging out, being lazy. We see Tony just just making it like a sand angel of all things, which is kind of weird coming from her because she's so angry and stuff. We see Fatten, she's reading Leah's book, and as she's reading it, she's seeing the love messages from Leah's older boyfriend. So she now suspects, what's going on between Leah and why Leah is so protective of this book and stuff. And so, as she's reading it, she's telling the other girls certain phrases that she's hearing it, and Martha's kind of like, what does that mean? Because, Martha's never, done it with anybody. And so, Fatten's kind of informing her and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, Tony shows up with, a naked mannequin, only, the torso. And so it's cut off down by, the thigh area. And so, next thing you know, I think they named him Marcus. And they dress him up in the pilot's uniform, and they're gonna pretty much he's their little lover boy. They're gonna take turns just goofing around and pretend they're boyfriend and girlfriend, which is kind of fun to see. After all what they gone through, it's nice to see them just hang out and have a good time. And then Martha takes some lipstick and draws a penis on the mannequin. So Dot and Shelby comes back and lets them know that, hey, they found a new place to stay. And then next thing you know, the trio comes back with the black box. On the black box, it says, do not open. So Rachel's all like, you know what, we shouldn't open this thing. It probably just going to sit down and signal. But then the other girls are kind of like, well, what if it doesn't? Well, you have to open it up and press a button or something. So they have this huge argument back and forth if they should open it or not. And then I think Dot shakes it a little bit and says something's rattling around in there. We need to fix it. So then they finally decide, okay, fine. Dot's gonna open it up and she's gonna fix it. Now here's the thing. I know Dot's the makeshift leader and stuff like that. And I know she knows a lot about surviving out in the wild. But I mean, come on, she can't do everything. Like later on in this season, I find out she knows a lot about medication and stuff only because she sells drugs, which is kind of weird because people who sell drugs, they're not like a pharmacist or a doctor. They don't always know everything about like medication, which ones to take or not. But I mean, for her to figure out how to fix the black box, that's just a little too much. You know what I'm saying? So they find a little recording box after Dot fixes it, and they play the message, and it's like the events of the plane crashing down and the pilot signaling for Mayday and stuff. And the girls are just like they just can't take listening to it too much because it's just too painful to figure out what they experienced. I remember when Leah was out in the ocean with Rachel and Noah, she asked them, "Do y'all even remember like how do y'all get to shore?" And Rachel's all like, "No, I totally blacked out." And then Noah's all like, "I dragged you to shore. It wasn't that far." But they just can't take it no more. It's almost like they're reliving it in their head, but they don't have like certain events. In episode 4, 6 whole days have now passed by. And this is a Tony episode. This is the extremely angry, pissy girl. Okay, so they're on the beach and some chips like wash up on shore. They don't have much food. Mostly all they have is like sodas, some nuts they forage for. That's about it. And some chips show up. And they are extremely happy for these chips. But Dot thinks they're her chips because she had bought some at the in the airport lobby. And so, but no, Tony thinks they're her chips because she remembers she had some in her bag. They probably got washed up on shore. But Dot's all like, no, no, no. I got these from the vending machine and everything. So they argue over that. But they decide they're going to sell it on one way and one way they can sell it, having a building contest. And in this episode, an axe shows up when they find a bunch of supplies. And when I saw that axe, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, is this how Rachel loses her hand? So the girl broke off into teams. And one team is Tony, Martha, Shelby, and Nora. Because Nora got picked last. And Rachel didn't want Nora on her team. And of course, the other team is Dot, Rachel, Fatten, and Leah. So, Tony tells Martha, we should build like this type of hut that we saw in woodshop class and blah, 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 stuff like that. And Martha tells her, if you would have stayed awake, you would have known that's very difficult to make and everything. So Tony gets pissed off because she gets rejected for her idea. Also, remember she's upset because Martha's been spending a lot of time with Shelby. And Tony does not like Shelby at all. With the other team, Rachel's still being her pissy little self. She really doesn't even want to do this little game, but she got persuaded into doing it. Fatten really doesn't want to do it at all. She just wants to lounge around and do nothing because she's like a spoiled princess. Leah is pissed off at Fatten. Leah is pissed off because of the last episode because Fatten told Martha all the stuff that Jeffrey wrote to Leah in the book. So she's not having Fatten's little lazy attitude. So we see the girls gathering supplies and figuring out how they're going to build their little hut so they can have the tackies. And so, Dot, of course, being Dot, like the wilderness expert, she's telling them, we should do it like this and do it like that, like they do on Survivor. So they do what she says. And of course, the other team are not getting along still. So in a flashback scene, we see Tony in high school, and she's this like star athlete basketball player. Her and Martha have been like really good friends for like the longest time because Martha is the only person who can really stand her attitude. So while they're like in science class, in walks the new girl named Reagan, and Tony is like just in awe at her beauty. and she starts to fall for this girl hard, and Martha can see that. So Martha arranges it so those two can be lab partners. These two talk and they bond instantly, and they just like fall head over heels for each other. So Reagan gives her a ride back home. We find out that Tony lives in the foster care system in a trailer park. Tony doesn't really like that. See, Tony has been feeling rejected all her entire life. Her biological parents, her dad walked out when she was little, and her mom is constantly in rehab, and she does not get along with her foster parents at all. Plus, everybody treats her badly because, she's poor and stuff. So we see one of her little foster brothers throw some ice cream at Reagan's car, and Tony gets out pissed off and just starts shouting at him and chases him. Reagan can see this and has kind of like a shocked, little scared look on her face. But she lets Tony know everything is alright by planting a kiss on her. On the island, something happens between Shelby and Tony. They get into a little bit of a tiff. I think on the island, something happens between Shelby and Tony. They get into a little bit of a tiff. I think Shelby was doing her Jesus thing, and that was getting on Tony's nerves. And, I think what it was, and Shelby confronts her and pretty much tells her, I know you have an attitude with me, and it has something to do with Martha and all this other stuff, and just like little things that like get on each other's nerves. And Tony starts doing like the little intimidation thing, and and Shelby, she's standing her ground, like, and then she kicks her in the butt. And Tony gets pissed, and I think it looked like she was about to hit her, but she didn't. But she threatens her and tells her, "Don't you ever touch me again," and stuff like that. So at this point, Tony is ready to like explode. Oh, and I know what happened. What happened was Shelby suggested that they put like the logs and stuff a certain way, and Martha agreed with her, and that pissed her off. So with the other group, Rachel and Leah, mainly Leah, are getting tired of Fatten because she's not doing absolutely nothing to help out. And, Dot told, go get like probably some giant leaves and we can put on top of like, the hut type thing. And Fatten does that, but instead she comes back with her toothbrush. Or she comes back with Marcus and a toothbrush. And she starts making jokes. And the other girl's like, "Oh my God, you have a toothbrush? Like, I can like brush my teeth, and my teeth are starting to feel kind of fuzzy." And she's all like, "Y'all are not using my toothbrush and stuff." Now, Fatten does let them use other stuff. She lets them use her clothes and her skin products and like her little bath soap stuff. Because early in the episode, they took like a bath in like the ocean. So then her and Leah get into it. And Leah tells her, "I'm sick and tired of your little lazy attitude. And I don't like how you told Martha about Jeffrey. And you never do anything to help nobody out." And Fatten's kind of like, "I shred my clothes, my nice expensive clothes, so that y'all can have like bandages and like other stuff and burn it for like firewood and stuff like that." And then I think somebody tells, I forget who, they told her like, the only reason why that's so is because your suitcase washed up on shore. Like you're the only person who has like supplies and stuff. And, she letting her know that, I contribute because, I let y'all wear my clothes. Because, she lets everybody wear her clothes and, so they won't have to wear the same thing over and over. But that's not good enough for the group. So then Leah hits her hard. Not physically, verbally. She basically tells like Fatten, how like you're just a big whore and everything. Because she constantly sleeps around with every man she sees. Fatten is not taking this crap. She's all like, "You know why I do that? Because it's fun. And something, I'm not like you who's going to waste all her time falling in love with like one little dude." And then she said something like really like salty about things like how she can't be with him or something like that. Leah gets pissed and grabs her and be like, "You're going to help us out." And then Fatten's like, "No." So then she trips and falls. When she falls, she bleeds on her like thigh. The girl's reaction cracking me up. Dot's like, "Oh my God." And Rachel's like, "I don't care." So then Fatten gets up and walks towards Leah, and she threatens her, tells her, "Don't you ever put your hands on me again." And Leah's all like, "Oh yeah, what you gonna do?" So then Fatten takes the blood from her thigh and wipes it on Leah's face. Then something strange happens. Leah's all like, "That's supposed to faze me." So then she starts walking towards the ocean, stripping down completely naked. And then she walks into the ocean calmly, just walks there. And then she starts going lower and lower. And then she goes underneath the ocean. And the girls are kind of like, "What the world is going on?" Fatten tells her plain and simple, the girl is psychotic in the head. Like the girl's just crazy. And then Fatten makes things worse by telling Rachel that, Leah said you were like the psychotic one and stuff because of how much you go get her. So this pisses Rachel off now. So, Tony, she's in the interrogation room in the present day, and she's talking to the two guys, and she's telling them, like all the stuff that's going on the island and all the flashback and the past stuff. When she was on a date with Reagan at the movies, some guys were being jerks when they saw them together and started harassing them big time. And so Reagan told her to just leave them alone, let's just hurt them and get out of here. But Tony couldn't do that, so she picks a physical fight with them. And they're struggling, they're scrapping, and then she spins around with her fist and she hits Reagan hard. And Reagan goes down to the ground. The guys run off. And then Tony's like all upset and telling her, I'm sorry, and stuff like that. Reagan tells her it's okay, but you can tell by the look on her face, it's not okay. Then sometime later, Reagan sits her down in the car and tells her it's over. She cannot take her attitude anymore. She says that, there's a fire inside her and that's what she loves about her, but that's also what she fears about her at the same time. And any little thing is going to set her off. So, Tony gets so pissed. After she's done crying, she takes her book bag. I don't know what's in her book bag, but it must have been something heavy. She takes her book bag and slams it into Reagan's car in the back window while Reagan is still in the car. On the island, something happens. I forget what, but Tony is still pissed off. And they can't, the other team is almost done and they have barely begun and they have a long ways to go. So Nora tries to help her out. She gets pissed and shoves Nora. Then the other girls stand up because they know, what's going to happen and stuff. So then, with the axe in hand, she just smashes the rest of their hut. And everybody's just like looking at her. And then you see Martha walk off. And, Tony follows her and she's like, I'm sorry I get like this. And Martha's like, I can't take this no more. This always happens. You always ruin things. You're always so angry. Why can't you just let things go or just take off and run and let your anger out? And she just lays it down on her and let her know that, the reason why nobody wants to be around you is because people hate your attitude. It's not you. It's not your sexuality. It's just your anger and stuff. So late on that night, they're all kumbaya and, they all decide they're going to share like the hut together and they're going to share the tackies. Well, at this point, Rachel is now pissed off at Leah. And then Fatten gets thirsty and she wants another soda. And Dot tells her, you're supposed to ration your own supplies. You can't be drinking everything. So they get into an argument again about how she's lazy and she storms off. Then we see her steal a soda. And then the episode ends with Tony just taking like a huge run at night because she's trying to let go of her anger. Okay, episode 5, day 7. And this is a Fatten episode. In this episode, we found out that Fatten plays the cello, and very good, I should say. So Fatten's family is loaded with money. They are rich, and she plays the cello, and she's really good at it. And her mother is very overbearing and constantly wants her to practice like nonstop. But she doesn't want to. She hates like how she has to bend over in the chair for her posture. She hates how her hands are cramping up. Now her dad, he's kind of like her best friend. She can like persuade him to do whatever she wants. With the little sad puppy dog eyes and stuff like that. So when she wants to like have her curfew extended, she tries to like persuade him and stuff like that. Now, Fenton, how can I put this kindly? She's a bit loose. Let's just put it that way. And she has a lot of partners. Let's just put it that way too. I don't know why she does what she does. She says she does it for fun. And other episodes, there's no indication that anything happened badly when she was a child. Nothing badly about like a past breakup that could have caused it. No like falling in love, heartbroken, nothing like that. So I'm not really sure why she is the way she is. So the episode starts off, and the girls are on the island, and they're woken up, and they discover that some of their sodas are gone, and they determine also that Fatten is gone. She has not returned from last night after stealing the sodas and having that huge like argument with the girls. So of course they're upset for like the millionth time, and they start to like impersonate her. They start talking trash about how like she thinks how she's so rich and thinks she's so much better than everybody and how lazy she is. So like some of the girls start taking turns. Nora is the one who's decided to start making fun of her, which completely shocks everybody because Nora is like the little nerdy girl and she's awkward, so you wouldn't really expect her to go and just make fun of somebody. So then Shelby takes a turn, Martha. Then Leah decides she's gonna take a turn, and when she makes fun of her, she talks about something about how proud she is of having so many STDs or something like that. And the other girls are kind of like giving her a weird look, and she's like, too soon or too far or something like that. Something I want to point out. One thing, I think I might have pointed this out earlier, but I'm not really sure, but I'll say it again. One thing I really like about this show is that like it really shows the girls complexions how it would be if you were trapped on an island, weren't able to really take a bath or clean yourself, no soap, nothing like that. You see their faces are constantly like broken out, blemishes, like heat rashes, all kind of stuff, blisters on their faces and stuff. And that's nice to see. It's nice to see them not glammed up like you do in like post-apocalyptic shows like The Walking Dead or Van Housing. And that's always bugged me. It's always bugged me how like the world has like ended and like everybody's looking like a supermodel. Now, I'm not saying like these girls are bad looking in real life because in real life they're gorgeous and stuff. But it's just like it's nice to see, how the show portrays like realistic stuff. So Rachel is still pissed off at Leah for what Leah said about her. And I think at some point she suggests that, why don't we burn your book that Jeffrey gave you? And then she says something that pisses Leah off, and Leah is straight up attacks Rachel, which gets the girls all up, and then Nora tries to stop her. So all of a sudden, Tony comes running in with a piece of Fatten's clothing, and she said there's like blood on it. And of course the blood came from like the other episode. And so everybody now is like freaking out. And they're all like, we have to look for her no matter what. So it's off into the woods they go, and they go looking and searching for her. But they can't find her. Then they find more of like clothing of her, items of her clothing. And so Doc's kind of like, an animal could not have done this because it would have been like shredded to like bits. So that's kind of a good thing, but still like, she's missing. So at this point, Doc's kind of like crap, like the little fire they got going. They have to keep it going. So she decides she's gonna go back. But Shelby's like, no, you're the only person who has like wilderness training and knows how to track stuff. So Nora volunteers, but Doc tells her, you're not able to do that. But then, Nora being so smart, she's like, I've studied you, I've studied books, I know what I'm doing. So she goes back to keep the fire. So we're having a family cookout. Fatten's dad tells her to check his tablet because he's trying to bid on like a Rolex. And so when she's checking it, she hears a beep. And then she checks it and she sees like all these new pictures that these girls are sending him. And then she finds like a new picture of her dad. So when she's with one of her little boy toy things, she tells him to like send it to everybody on her dad's contact list. And her friends are like, "You sure you really want to do this?" And she's all like, well, he's the cheater and all this other stuff, so why not? So while there, the girls decide to pull like a little prank on Rachel, this little teeny tiny animal, and she freaks out. She doesn't like being embarrassed, so she's like, "I'm gonna leave." So then Leah makes like a snarky comment about how she quits there, how she's a quitter and stuff like that. And she's all like, "I'm not quitting the search. I'm not going back to camp. I'm just going to go in a different direction." So, those two are still pissed off from like the other episode from what Fatten told her. But she decides to stay in the group. So at some point in time, as they're like searching, all of a sudden, Miss Rachel falls into quicksand. And she is stuck. And she's screaming, she's hollering. The other girls come. No, wait. I think no. What happened was no. She did take off to a different direction, and then when she fell, they came running in to help her. So the other girls are trying to get out. Martha's trying to like calm her down, and she is freaking out. And so then, they're like pulling as hard as they can, but she just keeps sinking. So they finally get her out of there. So she's all safe. And then something happens. I'm not really sure what, but Leah gets upset. And she's kind of like, what are y'all staring at? Something like that. I think she says or does something weird, or it starts like an argument. And then the girls kind of like get into it. So Fatten walks into her home and she sees her mom bawling in tears because of the news scandal thing. So she consoles her mother. She fixes her makeup until, she has to always look pretty and stuff like that. Then out of nowhere, here comes Fatten with a big, huge smile on her face and lipstick in hand. And they're like, "Oh my God, where you been?" And she's all like, "Well, I've just been cleaning myself up." And they're all like, "Oh, we've been like looking for you, and you've been having some type of medi-pedi." And then with a big smile on her face, she takes a lipstick and she marks like the tree. She's like, "This is what I've been doing the whole time. I've been like marking like my path so I don't get like lost." And with her clothing and the lipstick, because she found something really cool. She found a cliffside spring with like, it's so luscious, it's so gorgeous, and like the girls, they all go there, they have a good time, they're like taking a bath, they're like loving her for finding this thing. They can't sleep there because of course they have to stay near the beach side, so like in case the plane comes. So at some point in time, Nora forgets to like keep the fire going, and she's like, "Oh crap." So then she runs to it and she's trying her best to keep the embers going, but she can't. So she takes her diary and pages out of it, and she uses that as firewood. So in the flashback scene, we see Fatten is in trouble because her parents have found out that she's the one who leaked her father's pictures all over his contact list. And they are outraged with her. But she doesn't understand why her mom isn't more upset at her dad than her, because her dad is the one who's been cheating around and stuff. But her mom is kind of like the brainwashed type who feels that, marriage is like, hard and like, it takes time and all this other crap. So she's upset. They're pissed. He's constantly like just like shouting at her and telling her that, I don't understand why you would do this, because I'm like, you're one of your best friends, but just like your mom said, I cuddle you too much. And so as punishment, I think it's time to like send you on like that little feminist retreat we've been talking about, the whole Dawn of Eve thing. And it's kind of like that's how they're gonna get rid of like the problem of her, just like sending her away. So she's completely resented by that, and she's upset. and pissed to the point where she just wants to, I think she wants to run away and get her own place or run away to her grandmother's place or something like that. But then her little brothers are like really upset. So as the girls are back at their campsite, they're boiling water, and Martha asks how long, and Dot tells her a minute. And so Martha's all like, how am I supposed to know when the minute's up? She said like, well, I guess I can count. Well, Fatten gives her a Rolex. Not any Rolex, her dad's Rolex. She stole it. She then walks over to Leah, and as Leah's about to apologize, Fatten goes first, and tells her how she's sorry for betraying her with the whole Jeffrey thing, and they start to reconcile their differences. So that's nice. So, she learned from her lesson of betraying her father. She did a similar thing when she betrayed Leah. And so it's nice that she learned her lesson and, well, finally, and understand that, exposing people's secrets isn't, the best thing. Even though her dad is still in the wrong. And she even gives Leah a hug, which is just so sweet, So towards the end, Leah decides, it's finally time to give up on Jeffrey. So she hands the book over to Rachel, and Rachel throws it in the campfire. Back on the island, Dot tells them, they have to move Jeanette's body, because since she found that snake, and then Martha found the goat a long time ago, there's no telling what other kind of animals are on this island. And the last thing they need is for these, animals to come to their campsite. So they're like, okay, fine, we'll dig up her body. They don't want to dig up a dead person's body, but they're going to do it. As they start digging, they realize something. Jeanette's body is missing. And the girls are kind of like, what? Seriously, how did her body go missing? See, they don't know that people are spying on them, because that Gretchen lady at her facility, her and some other people have the entire island rigged with cameras and stuff so they can spy and monitor these girls in case something really bad happens, and also so they can observe and show the people around the world that women can be better than men. So the girls are kind of wondering, what happened to Jeanette's body? How did this thing disappear? Because there are no tread marks, there are no footprint marks, there are nothing. Because now they're starting to wonder if somebody's on this island or not with them. Because who dug up her body? And so some of the girls are kind of like, well, the ocean's really strong. The tide probably just washed her body away into the ocean. And then Leah and Dot's kind of like, there's no way the ocean's gonna drag her body from underground and drag it away, because where are the dig marks from it, So they're starting to suspect something's going on this island. And Leah is starting to become very paranoid. Leah really her and Dot are really starting to suspect that, there's somebody on this island with them, and something's kind of up, you know what I'm saying? Now, in the present day, when Fatten's being interrogated, she doesn't believe that the tide has taken Jeanette's body away. But she goes along with it because she doesn't want to freak out the other girls and start having doubt. She actually believes Leah that, something weird happened, but she kind of doesn't want to let Leah know that, because she doesn't want Leah to go off the deep end and start acting all paranoid. Now we flash back to a part with Gretchen at the Dawn of Eve project, and her and Alex are starting to have a little bit of a rift. It's to the point where she doesn't even know if she can trust Alex anymore. But she sends Alex on the island to retrieve Jeanette's body. Now, there's going to be an interesting reason why he's the one who is sent to retrieve the body, and we'll find out in a couple of episodes later. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.